Okay, hi, my name is Cassandra Engeman. I'm a researcher at the Swedish Institute for Social Research at Stockholm University and co-leader of Working Group 5, which was tasked with, or had the topic of paid parental leave data. I was co-leader together with Astis Arnolds from the University of Iceland and Ivana Dobrotic from the University of Zagreb. And so we had two main aims, was to identify data gaps and to submit applications for data enlargement in existing European social surveys and to interact with key stakeholders towards these aims. And so first of all, in October 2023, we published a report in which we looked at data gaps not only at European social surveys, but also administrative data and in policy indicators. And with this report, we highlighted that administrative data is fairly decent at telling us the percentage of parents who are on paid leave annually. This is because the governments do, of course, track who receives benefits from the state, and so we're able to understand, the percent of parents who are receiving benefits. But this data is not necessarily linked to a specific child, but really telling us which parents are on leave that year. Survey data, comparative survey data specifically, there's little distinction between paid and unpaid leave when people are asked about their leave use. They aren't typically asked whether it was paid or unpaid, and they're not typically asked or expected to know distinctions between maternity, paternity, and parental leave provisions. When leave is part of a core questionnaire where a person is surveyed and asked about their current situation, this leads to leave being a rare event. People are rarely on leave at the time of a survey, and so there's little data to really do any sort of complicated or deep analysis. And then there's a problem with people who are on leave at the time of the survey being misclassified as inactive or unemployed by the survey administrators. And then there's a problem in surveys that do ask about retrospective leave use, where you can get more data, but there's a problem with people not being asked about their leave use for a specific child. So there's not a reference to, say, the youngest child in these surveys. And then finally, with policy indicators, we found 13 sources of data, and there are trade-offs in comparability and detail. So some sources will give a narrative of policy reforms, but it's hard to compare then between countries, and then others give give comparative indicators, but they lack detail on, for example, eligibility. We issued a policy brief based on this report and emphasized a need for dialogue between disciplines, perspectives, and stakeholders, and a common and consistent terminology. The need to transform descriptive policy data into quantitative comparative data sets, and to improve estimates of eligible populations in social surveys. And finally, to expand measures of maternity, paternity, and parental leave use in social surveys. We then held a methodological workshop last year. With this, we invited stakeholders, and we focused our invitations to groups that actually have hands-on data collection experience. And so our participants were quite well aware of the data gaps, and we wanted to hear from them what they were doing to fill those gaps. We had 22 presentations, and so it's not possible for me to go over all of this really exciting data collection work that's happening, but it is in our post-workshop report. But there was some agreement among participants that parenting leave is quite a useful umbrella term. This was brought to us by participation from Working Group 4. And so there was some agreement there among people collecting data that this is a good term. We want to improve infrastructure and data linkages to calculate leave take-up rates. So this is wanting to know leave use among the leave-eligible population. This is very difficult to measure. And there's this need to link leave use or self-reports of leave use and retrospective leave use to specific children in order to do more comprehensive analysis. And ideally, we could link survey data with administrative data. Administrative data will give us more accurate measures of actual leave use rather than relying on self-reports, while surveys can give us additional information such as reasons for non-use. And then we recognize the need for a regular forum to coordinate policy data collection and to avoid working at cross purposes or duplicating efforts. We made a proposal to the European Social Survey to enlarge the data and with a focus on parenting leave. With this being the European Social Survey, the focus was on views and perceptions, though we did manage to put in a set of questions on leave-taking behavior. This proposal made it to the second stage, but was ultimately not selected. And so in our project, in the Cost Actions final year, we have been developing a questionnaire repository. We're continuing that work tomorrow in our breakout session. So in this, we are developing a set of questions for public use for the scientific community, and are proposing survey questions that address eligibility, leave use and non-use, reasons for non-use, and views around parenting leave. And so the idea would then be to draw on our collective expertise, especially our comparative perspectives, to propose questions that can be used in existing and emerging social surveys for the betterment of or improvement of available data. Thank you.